Hold on one second. Okay. David Talley.
Here.
Tammy McDonald. Deborah Manzo. Michael Dixon. Mark Bymaster.
Here.
Kathleen Weigel. Leandre Kamal.
Camel, just like
Camel.
the animal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Okay. So far, we have 3 audit committee members present.
Well, I think, why don't we give it just a couple more minutes, and if we don't end up with...
Okay, I heard you.
I'll just skip the items that require an approval and we'll go on from there, but let's give it another minute. I will just say before we begin, I'd like to go through our meeting protocol. As a reminder, your mic should be on mute if you're not speaking. Please raise your hand to get my attention and I'll nod to acknowledge. If you've asked a question and then have a follow-up question, please mute your mic in between questions. I'll get back to you to see if you have a follow-up question before moving on to the next person. And if you need to step away from the meeting for a minute, please turn off your camera. This will let me know that you've stepped away, although I know you can still hear what's happening in the meeting. Joyce, has anyone else joined us?
Not yet, not that I see.
I saw Mr. Dixon came on briefly and then came off. We might want to double check and see if maybe he's having some technical issues.
I'm reaching out to him now.
Well, I think we're going to have to, in the essence of time, go ahead and we're just going to have to exclude approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes because we don't have a quorum. But I want to welcome those of you that are here to our audit committee meeting for September. And first, I want to acknowledge our newest member, which is Leandre Camel. Leandre is the city manager in South Bay. And we just want to welcome you on board. We'll see you in person next month.
I was
Okay.
trying to unmute. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad to be a part.
Well, thank you. Public comments. Due to the virtual meeting format and board procedures, public comments sent by email before or after the meeting will be entered into the meeting record under a new agenda item. At this point, I want to turn the meeting over to our new Inspector General. Terry, you won't be due for long, but Teresa Michael. I've had the opportunity to meet with Terry on several occasions, and she's a welcome addition to the audit department, and I know we're going to enjoy working with her. So at this point, I want you to say a few words and give us an update, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Talley. I understand that this is a little difficult, and we've had a couple of technology issues, but again, please bear with us. Basically, I just wanted to give a little bit of an update on where I'm at, what I'm looking for in the future, and basically give you kind of a guideline or where I see our office going. First and foremost, everybody in the district has been very welcoming. I have met with the executive leadership. I've been meeting with the board members and, of course, with Mr. Talley throughout this whole time. With these meetings, I've asked different questions as far as areas in which the IG's office can improve, and if there are anything that they have any concerns about in the district as far as where the IG's office should be focusing. Through that, I've developed 3 goals and a 5-point action plan that should help me achieve those goals as we move forward. Of course, the goals and the action plan are fluid, as is everything in the district. It changes all the time, and that's part of what we have to do. We have to be able to be flexible and adjust as we go. The 3 goals that essentially I'm looking at are increase our efficiency and professionalism, align the duties and functions of the office with the standard OIG model, and along with the Association Inspector General Green Book standards. And of course, having a positive, Mr. Dixon, thank you. Having a positive impact on the district. A couple of the changes that are currently in place is having to do with our contract oversight unit. Unit,
I think I made it.
Yeah. Great. The contract oversight unit is going to be a more proactive unit. They are going to be looking at the different contracts that are coming forward, and they're doing a lot more outreach. I want them to be on the positive end. It's very easy for inspector generals to come and be a Monday morning quarterback. I don't want to do that. That unit is the positive unit. As far as investigations, the format, the reports, you'll see a completely different format for our investigations. We are going to be focusing on misconduct issues and not into those areas that are more performance or managerial. I've also developed and sent out a survey to all the inspector generals who are with the school district IGs, and trying to find how they are handling their offices, how they're dealing with COVID, any changes in policies and procedures. And I'll be presenting to the audit committee a revised policy for the IG's office. I believe there's some areas that we can improve and also align with the standard throughout the nation, along with the IG community and the Green Book. Lastly, on personnel, we have 2 big vacancies. That is, we no longer have a general counsel. We have advertised, and we're looking for an attorney to come on in. That advertisement will close at the end of the month. We also have the intake coordinator position that is open, and Oscar Restrepo, who's the director of investigation, will be doing interviews next week. Last but not least, staff will be returning to the office starting the 21st, as with everybody in the district. We are moving with accommodations for anybody who has medical issues. We're trying to give them an office so they can close the door. Other than that, the staff will be in 1 week in the office, 1 week out of the office, but staggered, so we're not congested. But I think it's very important that our staff are seen, that we're out there, that we're working, and that the district sees us along with them, that it's not just the teachers that are working, but the IG's office as well. Again, thank you for your patience, and if there's anything I could ever do, you ever have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I think everybody has my cell phone number. If not, we'll make sure that we get it to you. But we're here to answer any questions and to help in any way we can. But we appreciate you taking part with the audit committee.
Thank you, Terry. Does anyone have any questions or comments of Ms. Michael? If not, we're going to start back at the beginning of the agenda, and I failed to ask those that sit at the committee table to please introduce yourselves, and I'd like to start with our board chair, please. Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, everybody. Frank Barbieri from the school board.
Good morning, James Campbell, principal at Seminole Ridge High School.
Good morning, Mike Burke, CFO.
Good morning, Nancy Samuels, Accounting Director.
Good morning, Wanda Paul, COO.
Blair Littlejohn from the General Counsel's Office.
Sir Randy Lowe, the Inspector General's Office.
Is there anyone else? If not, okay, thank you very much. Now we'll go back up and ask for approval of the agenda. I understand there are no amendments, so I will accept a motion to approve the agenda as shown.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Next, I'll have you take a few minutes and look through our last meeting. Gosh, that was in June 18th. Review those for a minute, and after you've reviewed those, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes of June 18th. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I would second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone else?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the motion is approved. Okay, now we'll go back.
Mr. Chair, Leandre Kimber here. I apologize.
To item 6. Beg pardon?
Mr. Chair, I apologize. Maybe my question is to Ms. Edison. How many voting members so I could recognize?
There are 7.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, which we have 4, which indicates we have a quorum. Okay, let's go on to item 6, the Inspector General proposed work plan. Ms. Michael?
All right. First and foremost, the work plan, as everybody knows, is a product of a risk assessment, and that risk assessment was done with input from the stakeholders as well as the board. It is currently in draft form for your approval, and of course, with any audit plan, this will change as needs change. We have built in that if we need to make changes, especially with the pandemic, we will do that. But at present, this is the plan that we have. We have 1 financial audit, which is our internal funds audit. We have 7 performance audits and reviews, 7 ongoing projects. Then we have our contract compliance, which will be continuing with the 0.5% sales tax, as well as reviews of procurement and pre-award contracts. And again, investigations, however, of course, we'll be working on as cases come in through the hotline. I welcome any questions and any additional input. If there's anything you believe that we should look at, please let us know. Do any of the board members like to make any changes or make any input as to anything within the audits or the contracts?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Michael. Let's have any comments or questions of Ms. Michael pertaining to the work plan. If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We got any more ayes? Yes, the motion passes. Okay, let's go on to the internal funds report. Ms. Michael?
All right. Randy, would you like to take the internal funds report?
Right.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The FY20 internal funds audit, we have already started doing the field work since mid-August. And as of last Friday, we already completed the field work for 27 schools. And as of today, we have completed about 35 schools so far. And we expect to finish all the field works, as scheduled by mid-March or late February. So that will be our plan, unless there's something happens. Otherwise, and then we are on schedule right now.
Someone's got their cell phone on, they're not going to turn it off. Any questions? Okay, is there anyone, actually, we that showed as 7.1. Actually, that was 8.1. We'll go back to 7.1, which is the RSM 2020 audit plan and standards communication. Is there anyone from RSM on the phone or on the internet?
I saw Brett was on earlier.
Okay, but there's nobody now.
No, he is. He's present. Oh, and Chantel. All right.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Brett said he's trying to talk, but no one can hear him. Let's see.
He might be on mute. He should unmute his phone or his computer.
Let's see.
Okay, try to unmute it now.
Brett? Brett, you may need to exit and then come back in. He said he was going to call back in.
I believe this is a conspiracy by IT. We'll have to start an investigation.
Well, the good news is this won't happen again because next month we're going to be meeting in the boardroom. The virtual meetings end as of today. So next month we'll see you all live.
Hello, can everybody hear me now? I'm dialed in. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the computer. I could hear all you, but you couldn't hear me. But, thank you for having us this morning. Again, my name is Brett Friedman. I'm a partner with RSM, and I have with me Chantel Knowles, who is a manager. And we're going to walk through the audit plan and the standard communications to the audit committee. So we're not going to go through every single thing in this, but just want to hit some key highlights. Again, this document outlines our planned, our planning process and communicates to you, the important aspects of that approach to kind of give you a sense of the scope of services and what we're going to focus on. So I'm not sure if you have the slide deck handy, but I'll just kind of walk you through the items. So Joyce, if we could start on page 2 of the deck, the scope of services. We're going to perform an audit of the school district's basic financial statements. We're also going to perform a compliance audit of the district's federal expenditures under the uniform guidance. We'll also perform a compliance audit in accordance with the rules of the Auditor General, and we will perform an examination of the school district's compliance with Section 218-415. If you can continue, Joyce, to the next slide. You gotta go forward past this. A couple more down, go to communication.
Is that right?
No, 2 more there, go communication, that's it. Okay, effective communication is essential between our firm, the superintendent, the audit committee, and the school board members. We ask for your insights in identifying any potential issues or concerns. As you're aware, we attend the audit committee meetings every session. We are available throughout the year, and we will be reaching out to you, Mr. Talley, as the chair, and to several other individuals, Mr. Barbieri as well, just to try and get your thoughts as we go through the process. The audit is not designed specifically to look for fraud and abuse, but we do make inquiries. Again, our focus is on the financial and compliance side. I know Ms. Michael does more the operational side, but communication is critical to any successful audit. Joyce, if we could advance to the next slide. Just to highlight, we will timely communicate to you if we do come across any fraud involving management or other fraud where there could be a material misstatement. Also, if there are any illegal acts, instances of non-compliance or abuse that come to our attention, we'll bring those to your attention. Again, not the focus of the audit, but if we see anything, we will absolutely say something immediately and not wait until the audit is concluded. As far as disagreements with management, if we run into any problems or difficulties, we'll bring that to your attention immediately as well. Joyce, next slide, please. One of the things that we're going to do at the conclusion of the audit is we will provide you a summary of the significant findings and results from the audit. We'll go over our views with regard to significant accounting practices and policies. We'll speak to you about the reasonableness and consistency of those accounting policies and whether or not they're consistent with industry standards. We will advise you if there were any significant difficulties. Also, we'll advise you if there are any uncorrected misstatements or any audit adjustments. If there were any disagreements with management, we will again bring those to your attention. Just want to point out, again, we wouldn't wait till the end, but we will reiterate that at the end, as well as any other issues that come up, and we will share a copy of the management representation letter. Since the key part of what we do is a lot of the work is based on representations and documents that we receive from management. Joyce, if we can move to slide 6. Just want to affirm for the audit committee and the members listening that, we in our firm, including our subcontractors, are independent of the school district in all aspects and will perform the audit in a completely independent manner. Another important aspect to highlight, no, you can go ahead, Joyce. We can advance one slide to materiality. Just an important thing to point out, obviously, given the size of the district and nature, we cannot, as auditors, test 100% of the activity. So we use a concept of materiality, which considers both quantitative and qualitative factors. We use our professional judgment, and it's really focused on where there could be potential material errors. So again, just to affirm, we do not look at 100% of activities, but we do take a risk-based approach on where there's potential errors that could be of significance to the district's financials. On the next page, just to highlight the audit team, the key players are still in place. Myself, Chantel Knowles, also Jean Borno is your returning in charge. And we also have Zenora Ward from Ward & Company, who is our small business partner. We have worked with Zenora. I've worked with her for probably about 20 years, and we have a great working relationship together. Also, we bring other resources as needed. We have IT resources and other technical resources available to assist. Things in cybersecurity and those natures, which we've talked with Mike about some of those aspects. One of the things, if we can go to the next slide, Joyce, to the basic users. We just want to reaffirm and make clear, again, we understand that this audit is intended to serve the citizens, taxpayers, bondholders, federal and state agencies. That's who we prepare this audit for. Also, we prepare this audit for the school board members and the audit committee to assist you in your role in discharging your corporate governance over compliance. We also work with the superintendent and management to provide observations and advice. But to be very clear, we work for the citizens and for the school board. We work with management to accomplish that. Just want to make very clear. On the next page, just to highlight our responsibilities. The primary objective of our audit is to express an opinion on the fair presentation of the basic financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. The financials are prepared by Mike and Nancy and their team. It's our job to opine whether or not they are fairly stated. Again, it doesn't get into operational characteristics, just to tell you that the document you're looking at is fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also have a responsibility to conduct the audit in accordance with both generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. We also do it in accordance with the rules of the Auditor General, section 10.8. In carrying out that responsibility, we try to make sure there's reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement, whether caused by error or fraud. Because of the nature of audit evidence and characteristics of fraud, we obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance. Because again, we can't look at 100% transactions, but we do everything we can. And if anything's identified, we pursue it and communicate it with you. On the next slide, management's responsibilities. Just to highlight again, management prepares the financial statements. Management is responsible for establishing and maintaining effective internal controls over financial reporting and compliance. They're responsible for ensuring that the district complies with all laws and regulations. They're also responsible for providing all financial records and related information to the auditor. They play a pivotal role in the process. Our experience, you have a great management team. They're extremely responsive to our requests, very timely and open. And often they reach out to us throughout the year when questions arise, as opposed to waiting for the audit. So we've already talked about a number of significant issues for this audit just throughout the year as we've gone through. The deliverables are some deliverables on the next page, Joyce. At the end of the audit, we will provide a report on the basic financials. We will also provide a management letter in accordance with the rules of the Auditor General. And we'll also provide a separate audit report on compliance with the Federal Single Audit Act, and also an attestation report on compliance with section 218.415. And 218.415, for those not familiar, that deals with the investment of public funds. So in addition to the audit and the compliance work, we do also look to make sure that any excess funds are being invested properly in accordance with Florida statutes. So we can go to the next page, Joyce. Okay, this highlights the timeline. We performed our preliminary work back in May, doing that virtually. We're here to present the audit plan, and then we're about to start at the end of this month. We will initially be starting virtual and will potentially come on site, again, depending on the safety protocols at the district. But the plan is, whether it's virtual or live, we don't anticipate any delays or issues. We're going to start the audit late this month, and we will finish it by early November as prescribed and consistent with every year. Throughout that process, we'll have continuous meetings with management. At the end of the process, we'll have an exit meeting, and then we'll come back, and it's expected that we'll be meeting with you in early December at your audit committee meeting there to present the results of the financial audit. Going to the next slide, just to give you a feel for things, and then I'll let Chantel dig into further. Our audit methodology is really focused on 4 key parts. It's doing thorough planning, making sure that we aggressively go through and understand and update the understanding of the control environment, and also the risk assessment. To give you perspective, this year, one of the things that we've done is we've looked at both the internal control process pre-COVID as well as the process post-COVID, paying close attention to where and if any changes happen in the process to make sure there's still good controls in place. We perform our audit field work, which is what's starting at the end of the month. And then at the end, we'll have completion and reporting. Throughout the project, we use project management and information technology to securely communicate and oversee the process in a smooth and efficient process. To walk into a little more detail, I'm now going to turn to Chantel to kind of briefly go over the audit approach for you. Chantel?
Hi. Good morning. So the first phase of our audit approach is our preliminary phase, which we completed that phase in May and June of this fiscal year. During the preliminary phase, we reviewed board and audit committee minutes. We also had a lot of discussions with Nancy and her team, as well as people within other departments. Our IT department, they met with the district's IT. They performed controls over the IT general controls, as well as they did some payroll application controls. We also reviewed the prior year CAFR, as well as the compliance reports that were issued by the Auditor General last year. In fiscal 19, the Auditor General did an operational audit, as well as the single audit. So in regards to that, we reviewed if there were any findings, which there were no findings for the compliance report. In this phase, we also review any significant changes from the previous year, any significant contracts, if there were any new debt that was issued, any new leases or anything that was entered into. As Brett mentioned previously, we also attended any of the audit committee meetings to see if there's any concerns or any areas that we might need to focus on. On the next slide, Joyce, it goes into a little bit more detail of different items in the preliminary phase, which is basically updating our understandings of all of the significant processes, such as the revenue, procurement, revenues, payroll, and we also do the walkthroughs of each of those processes, and we perform tests and controls. We also at that point look to see if there's any significant changes in any of the federal grants that the school district has obtained. And then when we get to our final phase, we look at that final schedule of expenditures to then start our planning and testing for any major grant programs. To the next slide is some of the areas that we focus on during final fieldwork and reporting. So in that area, we confirm any significant account balances. So we confirm all of the cash and investments. We also look at we confirm any significant revenue sources that the district received. We review bank reconciliations. We perform tests of details, which consist of reviewing invoices and purchase orders, as well as cash receipts to make sure that everything's being reported in the proper period. We also look and evaluate any key estimates and any of management's key assumptions to make sure that any of those significant estimates are recorded properly. And then we also complete our compliance testing, and we start drafting our auditor's reports, as well as the management letter. On the next slide, Joyce. So this slide just basically gives you an area where we focus for the audit. So it's broken down into 4 parts, which is internal controls, where we're just obtaining and documenting our understanding and performing walkthroughs and tests of controls. We also look at the routine processes as part of those internal controls, and we list a few of those there, which for the district consist of cash receipts, revenues, payroll is a huge part of their expenditures, as well as purchases and property and equipment. Another section is estimates, and then I'll also go into some of the non-routine processes in the next slides. Joyce, if you can go to the next one. So on the next few slides I'm not going to touch on each one, but it basically gives you an overview of the significant accounting areas. And we've also included what that balance was in prior year's financial statements, so you can kind of get an idea of how significant that account is to the school district's financials. So a significant area, which is a very significant estimate for the school district, is the self-insurance claims liability. As you can see, it was $57 million. So the risk there is the school district is self-insured for general employee health and workers' compensation. So it's just making sure that the school district has enough resources to be able to meet any outstanding claims. So as part of that process, the school district hires actuaries to determine what that liability should be. And we obtain those reports, we assess the competence of that actuary, and then we also send those reports to our own internal actuaries to make sure that those estimates and assumptions that are being utilized, that they're reasonable and that liability is reasonably stated. Another significant area is capital assets. As you know, there are a lot of schools and construction projects that go on, as well as funding that the school district receives to be able to do those projects. So we just look at each of those, we choose a sample and make sure that there's nothing that's going on in those construction projects. If anything's been completed, it's being transferred to a depreciable asset. And we also look to see if any of those assets are impaired and that they should be removed from the school district's record. If next slide, Joy. Another significant area is, and estimates are, the school district is part of the Florida retirement system. And they also have an other post-employment benefits plan. So the two of those combined is $1.2 billion. The risk there is making sure that those estimates are reasonably stated and it's in accordance in any of the agreements or contracts with the school district's policies. For both of those, well, in regards to the Florida retirement system, that plan actually hires the actuary, so the district doesn't have any say in that because they're just a participant in that cost sharing plan. But we also obtain all of those actuarial reports from the Florida Auditor General site, and we send those reports to our internal actuaries as well, just to make sure that the amount that the school district has as participation is correct and that the liabilities and everything that's reported isn't misstated. And we do the same thing for the OPEB plan, where that is the school districts, they hire an actuary for that plan. And we just make sure testing the census data by choosing some employees, making sure that the sex and any of the other information is complete and accurate, because that's what the liability is based on. Another significant accounting area is revenue, which that's about $2.4 billion last year. There, we just want to make sure that revenue is properly recorded. It's recorded in the proper period. We do a lot of cutoff testing. And as I mentioned previously, we send confirmations for those as well. So on this slide, I guess the one I'll go over is for cash and investments. So that accounts for about $1.1 billion in prior year's financial statements. So we send confirmations for those. We just want to make sure that cash is properly stated, the investments are properly valued at fair market value. We also do a lot of fair market value testing, making sure that the information on the disclosures and everything in the footnotes are correct. And we make sure the bank reconciliations are done timely, and that all investments are in accordance with the district's investment policy as well as applicable state statute. If you can go to the next slide, Joy. I covered a lot of another significant accounting area is the liabilities and expenditures. A lot that makes up those liabilities consist of the pension and OPEB liabilities as well. But in here, you also have accounts payable, accrued payroll. So we do a lot of testing there, just making sure that there's no possible budget violations, that expenditures are in the proper period. We do cutoff testing. We also look at subsequent disbursements just to make sure that anything that related to the current fiscal year, that there's an accrual for that. And we also look to see how fast the district is paying those liabilities that are just sitting there for a long periods of time. And another significant balance is payroll. It probably makes up about 60–70% of the district's expenditures. So there we rely on our IT folks to do a lot of testing to make sure that there's proper system access. There's not someone that can go in there and make changes to payroll, to employee rates. We also do internal control testing on our side to make sure that those employees exist and that payments aren't being made to fictitious employees. And we also look to see the reasonableness of the payroll balances. We compare to budget as well as comparing to prior year and also industry standards. The next slide. Other areas we look at is compliance with bond agreements, just making sure that any debt that was issued, that if there's any covenants, the district doesn't have any financial covenants. However, we just make sure that any type of compliance covenants that there might be, that they're in compliance with those. We also look at expenditures with any that the district has with the sales taxes to make sure that that funding, if it's stating that it needs to cover whatever. I know there's a committee that the district looks at for the capital expenditures and making sure that those are in accordance. Also, we look at the full-time equivalent determinations. So the Florida Auditor General comes in and they do reviews and they do FTE counts. So we review those reports to make sure that that information is correct, since a lot of the funding that the district receives is based upon FTEs. And then also we look to see if there's any going concern. So this year we have a significant change, which we also have on another slide in regards to COVID-19. I'm just looking to see what the effects and the impact of that is on the current year as well as the future financial condition of the school district. If you can go to the next slide. So a few more areas we look at is tax compliance. As Brett mentioned, the audit is a continuous audit, so we stay in communication with the school district and Nancy's department throughout the year. And a lot of questions that we get is in the tax area. So we refer them to our tax specialist to see if there's any, there's stuff that was in regards to COVID as well as payroll taxes. And then as I mentioned previously, we have our own IT department come in and review the school district's IT systems to make sure that changes and make sure that they're in compliance with statutory and federal guidelines. Next slide. So as I mentioned, everyone, that this is a significant change to our audit process this year, is just making sure to see the CARES Act funding. That's going to be a big part of our audit this year, making sure that that funding was in accordance with all of the guidelines. If there's any compliance considerations, we're going to look at this in our single audit part. And then also if there's any impact on any year-end closing process, anything related to teacher incentive payments. And as Brett mentioned previously, we are starting fieldwork remotely this year, but if anything changes or if Nancy and her team feels that it's more efficient and effective to be on site, then we would make arrangements to be able to do the audit on site. On the next slide, we just provided a link to our SEMS Coronavirus Resource Center in case you wanted to look at any further information or you had any questions. The next slide. And as Brett mentioned previously, we are responsible for planning and performing the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of misstatement, whether caused by error or fraud. So our audit is not specifically designed to detect fraud. However, if we become aware of anything, we will inform management as well as the audit committee. And part of that process, we also do a lot of interviews and everything we meet with the superintendent. We also meet with finance, payroll, and various other people throughout the organization. And then we also perform journal entries and do a lot of more tested details and vouching of transactions just to see if we become aware of anything. Next slide. And the last part of our presentation is we just included a copy of our peer review report. And as part of that, we received a peer review rating of pass, and we included a copy of that report just for your review. And with that, I'll just open it up to if anyone has any questions.
Any questions, committee members? If not, Chantel and Brett, thank you so much. And obviously, we look forward to working with you as we have in the past, continue in the future.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much. Okay, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this will be the last virtual meeting that we're going to have. That ends the end of this month. Our next meeting is scheduled to be on October 16th, and that will be held in the boardroom. Do we have any general comments from anyone on the committee or Ms. Michael?
Again, I'd like to reiterate, anybody that has any input as you take your time to look through the work plan, there's any concerns that you think we haven't addressed, or if there is something that you believe that we should be paying more attention to, please let myself know so that we can adjust. As we said, I know that COVID is kind of a fluid issue, so definitely want to get your input. Mr. Kamel?
Mr. Chair, I want to go back to something. I did have one comment regarding bond financing with this COVID umbrella. Are we okay? Maybe this is not the committee to ask, I'm not sure, but are we as a school board okay from a bond financing perspective due to COVID?
I don't know, Ms. Michael or Mike Burke?
Yes.
Mike,
This is Mike Burke, CFO. Yeah, we're fine. We're in good shape. We just recently we'll be issuing some tax anticipation notes later this month, and we expect that transaction to go off as it has in prior years. We do that every year, but we've been able to withhold. We still have our same credit rating intact, and we're in good shape.
Okay, thank you. I know some of the municipalities are having some issues, so I just wanted to ask about the school board. So I appreciate you, Mr. Burke, for that. Also, Mr. Chair, can I get a copy of the agreement with RSM? Because I don't know, more concerned about it. Are we being charged an additional cost for the CARES Act single audit to be completed? Because I know that's not a cost we were possibly being prepared for, but there may be an impact on that.
So I can certainly provide the contract. The single audit each year rotates. When we have every couple of years, the state auditor general comes in and does a single audit, and that saves us some money because it takes that work off of RSM's plate. Nancy, so this year I think it's back to RSM for the single audit.
Yes, that's correct, Mike. But I think that they're going to treat this as a regular program. I don't know if Brett's still on the line, but I was not anticipating additional costs associated with the CARES Act.
Yeah, I was under the same impression that, we have a lot of federal programs.
Single audit.
Title I, Title II, Title IV, and they typically, they look at all of those special revenue federal programs in their entirety under the one audit, and they don't usually charge us more if we happen to pick up an extra grant or what have you during the year.
Brett just chimed in, no additional cost.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you,
Okay.
Nancy and Mike. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any further comment from the committee members or anyone on the virtual meeting?
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So I just want to tell the audit committee that I've been meeting regularly with Ms. Michael, and I don't want to pat the school board on the back because sometimes we don't make the best decisions, but Ms. Michael was one of the best decisions we made in a long time. I think she'll be an excellent addition to our team, and I think you'll be impressed with the work that will come out of her office. She certainly is a great replacement for Mr. Chu, who worked for us so many years, dedicated loyalty to all of us. But Ms. Michael is certainly able to take over for him. So thank you, Ms. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. It's not often that the IG ever gets any compliments. I'm sure this will end after probably this month, before I'm well hated by everyone.
Okay. Any further comments? If not, I just want to again welcome Leandre Camel. It's great to have you on board with us, and I look forward to meeting you personally. Our next meeting is October 16th. Again, it will not be virtual, it will be in the boardroom. So are there any other comments? Terry, did you?
No, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate the time that you dedicate to the audit committee. I know this is not your full-time job, but I do appreciate it. We will not tax you if we don't need to on your time, and we are all cognizant of that. So we will do the meetings as needed, but not just to have a meeting.
That's great. Any further business or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Michael? Or Mark?
A second.
I made.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time. Stay well, and I'll look forward to seeing you next month in person.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Okay.